Good morning. I'm really excited to talk to you today. It's really been interesting actually listening to Michael's presentation because many of what he's saying I can talk about with respect to what it looks like on the ground and the practical nature. So just to give you a minute about Cielo to help you understand a little bit about what we do and why some of my comments have some relevance to what Michael was saying. So we are a global recruitment process outsourcing organization, which means larger organizations outsource their talent acquisition and many consulting and other talent partner related needs to us. So we are global in nature, but we certainly have roots here in Wisconsin. Some of you may have known Sue Marks, who is a iconic female entrepreneur who started this organization out of Brookfield, Wisconsin, and it's grown to 4,000 employees with many large organizations around the world. So we do get a lot of the kind of practical application of what's happening in the economy we get to see with our clients. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what we're seeing on behalf of hiring for our clients and some of the things you can be thinking about with respect to what's happening in the workforce right now, what can you expect, and what can you do? So let's start with what to watch. Michael talked a little bit about this, but we have a collection here of things where we see a lot of headlines around, especially in big tech and media, having some layoffs. What we've seen over the last 6 months has been kind of interesting in the sense that over the summer, we saw a lot of clients, specifically in tech and media, start to pull back their hiring out of caution, not necessarily acting on layoffs or do anything other than say, let's slow it down, because we think we may have overhired last year against what a lot of that demand was. And now in the last probably 3, 4, 5 months, we've started to see a bigger shift in terms of, we did overhire. We think we hired too many people. We've got to do a reset. We're not sure what's going to happen in 2023, so we're being a little bit conservative. Other industries, however, are different. So we talk about it with respect to being sort of a tale of two cities. Some markets are going much more conservative in terms of what their hiring looks like, but others are still at a deficit. It's still hard to find people in healthcare. It's still challenging to find drivers, and other places where we know we need some help. So this has been an interesting dichotomy in terms of what our clients across all sectors that we serve are doing, because some are booming, some are going lower, and it's all kind of an interesting mix. Michael talked about this a little bit as well, but we like to call this the demographic drought. So there is a real, and I won't spend too much time on this because I think this is generally known, but there is a real shrinking happening. It's interesting because the most recent study we had with our market insights group was that every market around the world in the next 10 years will experience a net negative opportunity of workforce available to demand, with the exception of India. Only place where they were able to find that the population and the opportunity for workforce was going to be larger than the demand. So we're not immune from that here in Wisconsin or Milwaukee either. So what I want to talk about is a little bit around what we can do knowing that we're going to have some of these challenges in front of us. This one is interesting as well, because not only do we have these dynamics going on in terms of what employers are doing, but we have a lot of dynamics going on in terms of what employees are doing, which is where I will spend most of my time here. So we know we've had a lot of turnover in some areas. We have a lot of internal mobility happening. We have a lot of mobility across markets. It's been really fascinating actually to watch what's been happening with workforce. It's not something we've seen much of in the past. As Michael mentioned, we had a lot of people that were hiring a lot last year, and they gave out kind of crazy packages to try to recruit from their competitors, and they're finding now that that was not sustainable. Most of us knew it wasn't sustainable, but some people were willing to engage in that. And so now we have workers who are saying, I might have priced myself out of the market, and I don't actually enjoy working where I am. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things you need to know when you think about being competitive as an employer. This to me is fascinating. It's really interesting to understand how we as employers, whether we're in HR or business leaders running the organization, we may have opinions about what matters to our employees. They have their own, and they're not the same. And I thought this was a fascinating study to help depict the fact that we'll make the assumption that, oh, they won't want to come work for us because we did furloughs or layoffs, or we don't have enough benefits, we don't pay enough. What we're finding here is that toxic culture and other experience-related activities are the things that are making a difference, especially for the new upcoming workforce. This particular dynamic is also fascinating in terms of who has the control. Years ago, the control was in the employer. So, people wanted to come work for us, they needed a job, so we could kind of dictate the terms, and they would accept the terms. That's not true anymore. The employee is doing much more of the dictating of the terms. Michael talked a little bit about work from home. It's an interesting dynamic to me. I love watching all of the, listening to Jamie Dimon's thoughts on work from home and listening to Elon Musk's thoughts on work from home, and then looking at what actual employers are doing. We tell our clients, in the US, you can expect to spend $10,000 more in annual salary offers if you are forcing them to come to the office 1, 2, 3, 4, all days. You can just suspect that. So to his point about the fact that you probably could spend less, you certainly aren't spending more to attract them. It is the number one keyword used when people are looking for jobs. Can I work from home? And that's been a whole new dynamic. And the fascinating concept to me is, depending obviously on your industry, in some industries this doesn't work. So there's an expectation of saying, well, what else can I have in terms of a better working experience if that's not an option for me? And where it is an option for me, I find it fascinating where we seem to think that talent only lives within a commute from a building. And that's not true. Talent is everywhere. And our job as employers, to the best that we can, is to find that talent and differentiate ourselves to our competitors by employing that talent in whatever means makes the most sense. So this is a lot more about employees starting to say, I care more about my environment, I care more about what it feels like to work here. Yes, there will always be table stakes expectations around income, benefits, etc., but those are becoming more expected and less an area of focus. Leading me to total rewards and what I mean by that. So the concept of total rewards is evolving. It has always been, in the past, how do we get creative in terms of pay for performance, attractive compensation, etc. But what's happening now, because that demand is changing, our definition of rewards and benefits has to evolve. Things like unlimited PTO, things like healthcare coverage for more specific needs for a broader audience that might not have been covered. But a lot of it is also about what they have as available within their own employer. I'll give you an example. This was surprising to me. Just within Cielo, last year I made the announcement that from now on, everybody gets to have their birthday off. You don't have to work on your birthday anymore. Wow, was that a huge, I just expected it to be something that was sort of like, hey, that's nice. We had Glassdoor actually positively exploding, saying, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. Our engagement surveys were like, I don't want to leave this place. It was amazing to me how something that simple was so meaningful to the workforce because they felt like they mattered and they felt like we cared. So total rewards is becoming more about being a human, recognizing what humans need, and helping them to fit work into their life instead of work dictating their life. So that's what we need to be thinking about in more innovative ways about ensuring that the experience of our employees is something more positive. We've heard a lot about reskilling, upskilling. I wanted to take a minute on this because it's important. As we talk about less available labor and more interest in people moving across employers, the loyalty is not really a factor any longer. People are happy to move from organization to organization in pursuit of what they value the most, looking for that connection between what they value and what the employer values. Reskilling and upskilling gives us the opportunity as an employer to create our own talent pool. How can we look at the folks that work for us now and create the kind of training programs that will prepare them for the jobs we know we're going to need? Alternatively, can we create new talent pools for ourselves even outside the organization? So for example, in our business, someone who does consumer sales, for example, may never have worked in HR, may never have been a recruiter. However, they have the skills of being able to identify a need, match that need, and negotiate. That's what a recruiter does. So how can we take someone who has that skill and train them to be in a different profession and have them start to become a recruiter? I've now created a new talent pool for myself. So upskilling and reskilling has a lot of opportunity for helping us be able to create talent pools and the type of workforce we're looking for. Employer brand is paramount. We all know that as business leaders, we have to differentiate ourselves from our competitors so that our customers can tell we're better. We want to buy from you because we know you stand apart from your competitors. You have to be the same as an employer. You have to be able to show how you can differentiate yourself from your competitors as an employer. Why should I pick you? It's no longer the idea that everybody always wants to work for this organization. We all strive for that, but that's becoming egotistical for us as employers. It's much more about how do we help them understand how we will give them a better experience than our competitors in terms of employment. Many studies will show you how that element of culture and that experience will actually unlock the energy and creativity in a workforce. So we have to start thinking about the psychological aspects of workforce management in addition to just the statistics. So this particular piece matters. What you say about yourself, what your employees say about you, and what other people say about you. And that comes through any element of the recruiting process and the employment process. Your recruiting processes have to make sure that their experience is positive, because even if they don't come work for you now, they talk to people, and they may come back to try to work for you later. So that has to be a positive experience. And when you bring on and onboard new employees, many of them are talking to their friends. Everyone loves all of these anonymous platforms where they can say anything they want about their employers. See me in a break if you'd like my opinion on those, but there's certainly a lot of that happens, and it matters. It matters quite a bit. So employer brand is something that you definitely want to be paying attention to. Apply your same marketing tactics that you do for your business strategy as an employer. So what to do? There's a number of things I just gave you in terms of considerations, but what I thought I would do just is to wrap is to give you a couple of things more specifically and pointedly that you might want to pay attention to as you look to win in the workforce challenges for 2023. Number one, your brand is your bread and butter. So like I just said, if that's not something you've considered yet, make sure you do, because it matters to them. We are in the job now of recruiting is actually a challenge. You have to help them understand why they want to come work for you, because that is no longer is the employer in charge. Experience is everything. They'll talk about it, they focus on it, it dictates how energetic they are, how creative, how engaged they are. We have to start to focus a lot more on what it feels like to work at the organization. That helps with retention and engagement. Total rewards for humans, not resources. I can't stress this enough. After the pandemic, I think Michael talked about this, where are the people? Did they change their values and what they're looking for? They did. No longer do they want work to dictate their life, especially in the US. We have traditionally had a very strong belief around the dedication to work. It's not about that anymore. It's about how do I fit my job into my life, because my life is full and rich, and this is one part of it. And can we as employers acknowledge that and help them to understand how they can excel at work, but we can create an environment that will help them feel more like we support them as human beings. And learning is your lifeline. If you don't have much investment in learning and development, I would suggest you consider it. Because the ability to create your own talent pools and your own opportunity to give development to your teams is going to be able to tap into a workforce that you wouldn't have necessarily had. The number one thing that we have seen across our clients and within Cielo alone when we look at engagement surveys that people are asking for is actually development. I want to know what my career opportunity is. I want to know how I'm going to learn under you. I want to know how I'm going to get opportunities to have experiences I haven't otherwise. Comp is actually pretty far down. they are looking for that development, the next generation and the current workforce that we have. So if you haven't thought much about your opportunity for training and development within your organization, that's going to become more and more vital in terms of creating and sustaining your own labor force. So, status quo isn't an option. We can't keep doing what we've been doing and think it's going to be okay. We have to start changing about how we approach being an employer and how we approach the employment experience. And that's what I have for you. So, thank you for the time.